It's Les Murray here, and I'm up in the Highlands. I had hoped to do this earlier as a live and share some fabulous scenery with you, but since we got here it's been raining non-stop, so here I am in the corner of the kitchen doing this in a recorded format. So I'm Les. I'm a coach, consultant and leadership team facilitator. I've worked with over 100 clients, including some of the world's biggest and leading companies. My sweet spot, however, is working with the M of SME, scale-ups, typically 50 to 500 employees, perhaps multi-site, developing organization structure, a number of moving parts, and grappling with strategy as they seek to manage their growth agenda and the various challenges associated with that. My passion and my contribution is to transform the purpose of an organization into prosperity. And in doing that, what I find time and again is that the individual isn't well connected to the team where activity really happens that produces outcomes for the organization. So my efforts, if you will, through all the sort of frameworks, tools and process that I bring to the game is about connecting the individual team and organization such that it's aligned. So often I find that middle piece, the team, is just missed out. If only because learning and development philosophy approach places a huge emphasis on individuals and their development. So whether that's influence, impact, projection, presence, call it what you will, but the focus is very much on individual skill and capability development. And the organization, of course, is under huge pressure to produce results and invest in a way for result generation in the future. And the team, where all of this stuff actually comes together and happens, gets managed, gets led, gets driven, and produces outcomes, kind of just gets lost in that chemistry between the individual and the organization. And I would contend that nowhere is that more apparent than at the very top of the organization, where so many conversations I've had with people where people join, either being promoted or they've come in from outside through a selection process, and the conversation day one is congratulations, bigger job title, bigger salary, rites of passage, a real moment. You've made it into the room, you've got the keys to the executive loo, as it were. And a very fuzzy expectation of how you're expected to work with your peers. What is this team that I've joined? So often the case that they're actually competitors. There's still a case of elbows out and, I've got to watch my back here. Because that's the way it's been set up. That's the dynamic. Sometimes that's the way it's encouraged quite deliberately by founders, owners, and some MDs and CEOs. But more often than not, it's just slipped into that way of being because nobody seems to know anything better. This is the way it is. This is what happens. This is how we are. So as a result, people very quickly adopt wearing a mask, making out that they know what they're doing when they really don't, and become quick to blame others, especially on a Monday morning, and start to compete rather than collaborate because they haven't been shown how. So this book is my approach to tackling that dilemma. So here we have in my hands author's copy, so still got this not for resale. The actual product won't have that on the day of launch. And it's 300 pages, and it's very readable, I would suggest. It's 10 chapters, broadly split into 3 sections, which are to what's it take to build a senior team, to recruit, to onboard, to connect, to meld the team in such a way that it can inspire and lead the organisation. How the team is managed, the work that it does, its collective output, what's expected of it, what distinguishes a high-performing senior leadership team, what's its contribution on strategy, how does it influence culture, how does it drive performance, how does it make execution happen, does it create processes and systems that actually improve how work is actually completed and executed around here. And the third part is really habits and practices, if you will, that sustain the rhythm and cadence of the business and drive it forwards to achieving its goals, and the role of the senior team in terms of making that happen. This matters, dare I say, because what stunned me in my research when I started doing work on the book was I came across a McKinsey article, and they do actually produce some good stuff, but this article highlighted that only 8% of senior executives believed their SLT, senior leadership teams, were high performing, which is a very worrying statistic. You think about the cost and time that's wrapped up in that team and its influence. And then the most worrying one was probably from Gartner, where 50% of SLT leaders are unclear on how their collective work actually adds value. And it's kind of incredible to me that you could go into a room with a bunch of people and not know why you were there and what it's all about and what you're actually trying to produce and how you actually measure success on it. So it's little wonder when you take those 2 stats together and you hear of others from Gallup, which are very widely quoted, about high levels of disengagement, and as many as 2/3 of company employees don't understand their business strategy, but in particular, they don't understand what's expected of them as individuals or in the teams in which they operate in terms of how they're supposed to contribute to it. So they just bumble along doing what they do. So it's obvious, isn't it, that the senior leadership team sets a strategy, and to do that they need to create or rather develop the skills so as to be able to create and develop that strategy, plan for it in such a way that they can seamlessly execute it. They clearly set the tone for culture, because it's that culture, the voice from the top, that drives transformation in the business and gets things to happen, whether that's innovating with new products and services, processes and systems, or whether that's actually bringing out the talent within the business and allowing people to progress through the system. And most importantly, but so often just kind of passed over, is that when that team is aligned at the top of the organisation, they actually accelerate execution and bring results home faster because they're acting as a force multiplier. You've seen it with, simplistically rowing boats, 8 rowers rowing in rhythm. That's no contest. You've got 8 people who are just, frankly, all over the place. So what I try and bring out in the book are a few things that can be different. So there is a tendency to look upon leadership as something of a, one has to be a superhuman to be a leader, a sort of master and commander of all one surveys. And perhaps given the kind of entry to the senior team that happens for most people, it's quite understandable or forgivable that a lot of people kind of approach leadership in that way. Instead of which, in the book, and I spend some time detailing this, I advocate instilling a leadership philosophy of leaders. Creating leaders is what you create in the business, and you seek to infuse that at all levels of the organisation, genuinely empowering and pushing people to give their best so that leaders perform at their best, and everybody's kind of creating this upward draft, this push to make the best of anything that can happen. And this book outlines that philosophy and shares some approaches and tools as to how that can be brought alive. It also spends some time, a couple of chapters, on how to create, develop, plan and execute strategy in such a way it's a much more participative exercise, not an ivory tower, not in the head of one person, but the senior team coming together to drive that. So again, some tools, techniques on how that can be done, and create plans which can be delivered on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis and tracked. And also there's quite an emphasis on how to structure meetings to bring to life the management agenda, ensuring that participants have impact on the outcomes, that they are engaged, not disengaged. And that covers all meetings from the most strategic to the most tactical at a daily or weekly level, and creating a rhythm for the business such that there really is a heartbeat driving things forward. So I would say in conclusion that, the research and hands-on experience that I've had from many years of work, I offer up a blueprint which at its heart talks about three things at the centre of any high-performing or exceptional team: is having clarity of roles, distinct, purposeful, meaningful roles with accountabilities and responsibilities associated with them, shared goals within that team which are meaningful, stretching in at an organisation level, establishing norms, red lines and non-negotiables are very much part and parcel of that. But also it's about creating processes for creating plans that can be implemented in a system which provides a rhythm and a discipline and makes solving customer issues and challenges a central focus of business activity by adopting various creative problem-solving approaches which enroll teams. So it's not about internal competition, it's not about backstabbing, it's not about leaders faking it, but coming together, connecting and bringing the best out of each other. So I recommend the book to you, Lighting the Blue Touch Paper. It's a good read, and if it helps you step into a role more fully and connect and engage more authentically with your peers and get some stuff done with less friction and unnecessary conflict, for me it's been worthwhile, and I consider it my little dent in the universe in that respect. So thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the book.